Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone to Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Well, welcome everyone to today's version of The Bend. I'm your host, Debbie Boone, and today I have a friend of mine, Joe Chickerillo. Now, Joe is a fellow Vet Partners member, but he also works for a company that I like and endorse, and it's called Chckup. So Joe was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, and when I read that in his bio, I just laughed and told him the song words to Bad Bad Leroy Brown popped into my head. But now he's a suburbanite and he lives in the western suburbs. He spent the last 15 years in various SaaS companies, all with successful outcomes, smattering of websites, digital marketing sprinkled in here and there. And the majority of that time has been in the dental world. And he just recently moved into the veterinary space, but not so recently anymore, I guess, Joe. He has a big passion for building processes, creating infrastructure, and taking disruptive solutions to market so they can become an industry standard. So today we're going to talk about a disruptive solution that he is a part of, but also how he got to be part of that, because he is currently the vice president of sales for two companies. One is called My Dental SOP, which is they're on the dental side, and the other one is called Chckup, which is the one that's on the veterinary side. So Joe, thanks for coming on and being a guest on The Bend today.
Yeah, happy to be here. I appreciate you having me. I am fractional VP at two different companies. It's been a lot of fun. Like you said, my background largely for about the last almost 15 years has been in the human dental world. So that's really where I kind of kickstarted my career about 15 years ago. It was really sort of a happenstance type of a thing. Going through college, I worked at Starbucks, and Starbucks is, in my personal opinion, the single best way you could network with everybody and anybody under the sun, which is my favorite thing in the world. I love meeting people. I have this like secret plan, like this secret retirement plan because I'm the type of person, I never really want to retire, but I have this like secret plan. I'm going to work at Starbucks like 12 to 15 hours a week when I'm like 80 and just continue doing that forever. So I mentioned that because that's really how I got my start in terms of getting into the software startup business. And the first one, funny enough, was actually in the automotive world. It was a really cool platform. We had this really, really great disruptive technology, and life happens. And the guy who was the president, who was running the whole thing, had a heart attack and died. So I had to move on from that, and I stumbled into the dental world, into the websites and digital marketing space. And that was really kind of my first intro into that space. Then got called up to work at a startup company because the guy that I was working for, the VP at the time, had recognized a certain skill set, and I would say a combination superpower. I feel like everybody's superpower is also like a weakness, depending on how you look at it. Mine, I consider myself to be ADHD, functional ADHD, but I'd like doing a million things all the time. I thrive on chaos. So it's a little hard for me to focus on one thing for a long period of time, but it makes me perfect for a startup. So we created a software company, not created, I should say, joined and took to market an existing software company in the dental space. So that company was the first and only online booking tool for human dentistry. It was back in about early 2016 that we jumped on board there, took that to market, and we had about 30 providers on in early 2016. By the end of 2019, we actually had a little over 9,000 providers.
Wow, that's some
Again,
growth.
It was that hockey stick growth that every startup company is trying for, right?
Up, yep, straight up at the
Exactly.
charts. Absolutely.
It was because it was such a no-brainer. It's something that helps everybody, helps with efficiency, scalability, with growth, with marketing conversion, and it's something that everybody wants. Meaning the clients, right?
The consumer,
funny thing was, that a lot of the dental offices themselves did not have a strong desire for this, because they were like, oh my goodness, I cannot give up control of my schedule, so to speak, right? I'm sure this sounds
Yes,
familiar to
it,
you.
it sounds very familiar. And, in dentistry, I think there are less variables than in veterinary medicine. And I think that's why in veterinary medicine, it probably took us a little longer to get there to online scheduling. But, there's things that are very finite. We know about how much time a puppy vaccine visit's going to take, or a old dog wellness, and we can certainly adjust the amounts of time that we put into our booking schedule provider to say, okay, I want 15 minutes for this one and 45 minutes for this one, and that's okay. And you still maintain control of some of your day if you don't want to give it all up. But, for a dental hygienist, that's almost a finite period of time. And I'm usually one of those people who doesn't take very, I'm a tooth fanatic. So it doesn't take very long for people to clean my teeth and I'm out the door. So I give them a little bit of their day back after they hand me my little bag with my toothpaste and toothbrush and send me on our way. But yeah, this is very interesting, is how there's a transition and such a similarity between dentistry and veterinary medicine. And surprisingly enough, today I actually had a dentist reach out to me for some training for their team, because they saw one of my hospitality webinars and said, we really want you to come into our hospital or our practice and teach the team some hospitality skills. I went, sure, that's cool for a dentist. I could do that for a dentist.
Yeah,
Um,
you could.
yeah, but let's talk about how you got into the veterinary space, because that's a little, I mean, I don't know if that's a big curveball. That your boss dying, that's a big curveball in your
Yeah,
life.
that was a curveball, yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that was something I sort of just stumbled into, and I wound up really enjoying it and being really good at it. So that was kind of cool. But I guess, yeah, that was a curveball, but that was before even the dental part. The how I got into the vet space was the online booking tool that we built at the time. It was called LocalMed, and it was so successful that we got bought by a larger company, or merged with. I say got bought by, but we merged with a larger company that did practice analytics. They would get into the practice management system and pull things like revenue, opportunities for lost revenue that we're not maybe aware of. The ability to look at who we want to reach out, who's the most ideal client to fill these empty time slots and things like that. So now we had the analytics to tell us who we wanted to book, and we had the booking tool to get them actually on the schedule. So what were we missing? What was the ability to actually get that booking link or tool or widget or whatever depending on the avenue, to the client. So they bought another company that did the communications, meaning like texts, emails, reminders, all the automated communications go into it. And the three systems together, oh my gosh, what an amazing ecosystem to work within. The only problem was that they were all daisy chained to one another. She still had to pay for three different solutions to get that functionality, which meant three different charges, three different points for possible error between them. And even though it was us, so there was a quite a while where we spent building all those things, that like literally almost 3 years where we spent integrating them all together. So the company is still very successful right now. The people that work there are great, but being part of a really large company like that, we went from being like 17 of us on a really tight knit team to being part of like close to 200.
Oh,
And
wow.
the dynamics are just a little bit
Yeah.
different. So I really wanted, me and several of the other people that were kind of part of the original team wanted to go out and do something different and fun and disruptive and new. And one of the guys who originally built that tool basically somehow got into the vet space. He got connected with these guys that were alums of the same university. It was LSU, Louisiana State
Okay.
University. Got connected with them. They went through the same incubator program. They had this idea for a business, and the guy who built our tool got in contact with these guys and said, "Hey, I see what you guys are doing in the vet space. Let me tell you, I've already done this. There's a lot of parallels, and here's all the different things that you're going to want to avoid. Here's the pitfalls. Here's different things, blah, blah, blah." So he actually got involved with the company about 2 years ago. And when they had this product built, this platform ready to take to market, I got the phone call. So it was like, hey, would you like to, first of all, do something that you had a lot of fun doing? It was very rewarding. It was very disruptive, and it just helped everybody. And number two, you get to deal with animal people now. I was like, absolutely. Like, you couldn't give me but I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. So then the nice thing here, the difference with Chckup is it's literally the exact same three tools, right?
Mhm.
But now we built it all under one roof. So it's one integration with all the different practice management systems, but one integration covers all of those different tools all under one. So it actually works more cohesively and more efficiently than even what we were doing in the dental space. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
It absolutely does. And one of the challenges I talk to this about to practice owners and my clients is there's so much redundancy in what the tools are we have available to us that you can subscribe yourself to death in practice. Because it's like you said, originally this platform for the dentist, it was three different subscriptions, it was three different fees, and then you're trying to get them to integrate with each other and play well in the same sandbox. So how do we avoid all that and just say, let's find a tool that does all the things and not have to pay, all these multiple providers? Because every time there's a different provider, there's an opportunity for failure somewhere in the communication. And since
Exactly.
communication is my thing, the failures cause us a whole lot of headaches and a whole lot of grief. So tell me, was that a little bit scary? You think you're leaving your kind of cushy job and saying, oh, okay, I have a lot of safety over here. I know this space really well. I've been working with dentists for a long time, and now I'm going to be thrown over into the veterinary side where I really don't know much, except maybe as a pet owner.
If
Yeah.
I'm being honest, it absolutely was. And to be completely honest, it still is a little bit
Yeah.
because when I like even now, like there's in the human dental world, it's there's so many striking similarities between dentistry and veterinary, right?
I
There's
agree.
a similar lack of business education and training. There is a similar hiring and labor crisis. There's a similar mental health issues. The two professions are two of the highest for suicide and alcoholism and depression. I mean, there's the whole thing about subscribing to death. There's so many different things that are coming at you all the time. I mean, there's so many different similarities. But again, like you said, I'd been in it for so long that in a dental environment, if I walk into a conference, like think like VMX, if I
Mhm.
walked into the dental version of VMX, which is called Midwinter, which is actually here in Chicago where I live.
Ah,
I walk into that show, I could walk around for one day and I run into 100 people that I know. And it's all, oh, what are you doing? What are we doing? Let's talk about collaboration and all this stuff. And I just know all that. I know what software exists, and I know the trends. I know what people are looking for, and this and that. And coming into the vet space, as similar as it is, it's a whole new ball game. It's different. It's a different network of people. Now, to my pleasant surprise, people in the veterinary space, I feel like tend to be, first of all, just super super good people. Like really, I mean, like if you're an animal person, you're probably by default a good person. That's how I feel, right? But also there's this interesting thing to me that's in the veterinary space that I love, which is a feeling to me that even in a situation where there might be competing either software or consultants or providers of what have you, everybody collectively seems to want to help move the profession of veterinary forward.
mhm.
Like it's not like this, oh, like go behind each other's back and like trying to get one up on each other. I
Yeah.
really feel like veterinary is unique in that everybody is generally trying to help push the whole profession forward, which that quote, like rising tide raises all ships.
Yes.
Like I feel like it's like an abundance mentality, which I absolutely love. So scary, yes. Also still continually surprising and refreshing, yes.
Yeah. Good. I love that you said that because you're not the first person from outside of veterinary medicine who has come and looked into it and went, wow, the fact that consultants, somebody actually asked me one day because think I had referred them to another consultant because they didn't have the bandwidth to help them or the expertise. And they said, wow, this is very different from like dentistry or human medicine, where the consultants are very cutthroat and
Cutthroat,
they
yep.
would never ever refer to each other or help each other. And you guys just seem to be very collaborative, and I laughed and I said that's because there is so much work for us to do in this profession
Exactly.
that there's plenty for all of us if we look at the need as opposed to the limitations. And so we absolutely have an opportunity to collaborate together, like you said, to help the profession rise. And we know we talk a lot about modeling it off of human side or dentistry, and there are, as you said, very much similarities. I did a webinar based on my book, and Care Credit put it out to their human side providers too. So it was interesting to me who the audience was. They were
Yeah.
chiropractors, they were dentists, some physical therapists, obviously veterinarians, and very, very human medical office providers. And I feel like that is because the human dentistry, chiropractors and physical therapists understand that there's competitive pressure that on their work. Like if you don't like your dentist, you're going to talk about it. You're going to go to another dentist. And many people are direct pay, so they don't have insurance, or they might not have dental insurance available to them. And it's the same thing for a chiropractor; it's not an insured. But the medical doctor providers know insurance pays. We may not have to be as good at customer service because there's a third party paying our bill, so they're going to pay us no matter what. So I feel like there is absolutely a parallel between those providers and veterinary medicine, and a lot of what works over there works for us, definitely works for us. And obviously what you're talking about is something that I feel like is going to be very helpful for the veterinary profession. So let's talk a little bit about, I always like to talk about decision making, because I feel like this bend is an opportunity for people to learn how people make decisions in their lives. And some people are kind of like just gut instinct. Let me just go for it. There's no set rule. And other people are like list makers, maybe pros and cons, and what's best for me. And I've had both of those. So are you the list maker guy, or are you like, go with my gut, this sounds fun, and I'm off to the races?
So this is this is kind of a little of this, a little column A, a little of column B,
Uh-huh.
because by nature, again, like I said, I consider my superpower to be like functional ADHD, right? So I've always had I think that I've always had a gut feeling, an instinctual sort of a guide to myself, right? If I can really buy into something myself, I can probably I feel like I can get other people to buy into. If I can get passionate about anything, I can get other people to buy into it. The downside of that is that, again, it's hard, it's just hard for me to kind of focus on one thing. So once I've made kind of the high level decision, sort of based on gut feeling and instinct on my own, whatever I think needs to be researched or thought about or thought through in that given moment, once I have kind of the high level plan, then I absolutely have to be a list maker to be able to keep myself on task. And actually, really more so than anything else, that really, I found myself having to get to that level once COVID hit, because once collectively as a country or a world, we had to start all working from home. I had never done that before, and it's really difficult for me, and I think probably a lot of people, that to stay on task if you're in your own home,
Mhm.
because there's so many things going on. There's so many things you could be distracted. Oh, I could do laundry. I could, my dog wants to go outside. Like, there's all these little things. So it's kind of a combination of both, because I think that everybody needs to have a certain level of gut instinct to know what they are capable of and what is actually possible with given their experience in the world, whether it's personal, business, what have you. But there has to be some level of organization to be able to make sure that the important things get done. Have you ever heard like the metaphor about like your big rocks in the jar and then the little rocks in the sand? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you gotta have your big rocks. You know what I mean? That's
Mhm.
what. So it's kind of both. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I agree with you. I mean, I feel like, and the working from home thing, I know a lot of people in veterinary medicine that don't really have that opportunity, but there are a lot of people in our world who are working from home, and some people love it, and it does require self-discipline, because I do it. But to your point, for a long time, I was traveling a lot. I was working at home when I got home. And the point when you made the I need to do laundry and the dog needs to go out, I would like look at the dog and go, don't you need to go out? Because I was doing something I thought was boring and I would want to go and get away
Exactly.
from it. So it gave me a good excuse to go do something else. And like you, I'm a little ADHD, and I feel like I keep multiple balls in the air all the time. And my husband is so organized. His desk, if you could see his desk, which has nothing on it but a calendar and a pen and the mouse for his computer, and mine, which has papers still from AVMA lectures, your bio, the list of questions. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on my desk, and project work over here for my clients that I'm still working on. So I do like to keep things, balls in the air and working on multiple things. And it maybe my husband's like, when are you going to retire? I went, oh, that sounds awful. I don't even want to do
Yeah.
that, because I just like all the things to do that. Truly, truly knowing yourself, I think, is an important part of this. Is how do you work best? How can you keep yourself on task? And then, how can you be successful when you know that there's a thing out there that is a challenge to you? For me, I love to talk to people. And so how did I survive as an extrovert in the middle of the pandemic when I was working from home? And thank goodness, there was a lot of Zoom calls for me.
Uh-huh.
And this podcast and podcast certainly helped that too. So Joe, what do you think is your biggest career mistake looking back?
I have a level of self-awareness. I have a certain look to me, right? I have a look that sometimes can be intimidating to certain people, especially on like a trade show floor. Like I've several different people in my that I respect greatly have told me for years, hey, this is something you have to overcome when you're in a sales role, when you're in an in-person role. Like this is, I've just been told by multiple different people, not knowing that the other ones have said this. Like, hey, you've got kind of like a certain, like you got bigger arms, you got tattoos, you wear earrings and jewelry, you spike your hair. They're like, you have kind of a look, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I know. I mean, like, it's not always a positive thing. I do think it helps me stand out a little bit, but for many years, like 5 or 6 years, when I started going and doing these speaking engagements on stage and going and doing these different conferences and trade shows, I would try as hard as I could to kind of dial that back and wear like a shirt that was very like kind of not standoutish, and I
Mhm.
wouldn't wear any jewelry, and I would try and be kind of more conservative, and it was always a struggle for me because I have kind of a loud, boisterous sort of a personality. And in life in general, that has actually worked really well for me. And I think I'm one of the things I'm most proud of in my life is the connections that I have, and the fact that I keep friendships for years and years, like people that I've gone to grammar school with that I'm still friends with. So at some point, we were going back and forth, me and several of these different people over time, and I would always, yeah, I'm working on this, and I got to do this and this, and blah blah blah. And at one point, I had been out with somebody whose opinion I respect for a very specific thing. She's the CEO of a company that does um, like websites and marketing, digital marketing and branding, and she's really really heavily into the branding and the sort of telling of your story,
Mhm.
right? She knows these two of the same people that I had been talking about for quite a while, and I had made this joke because she's also a pretty conservative person. Doesn't swear. I tend to swear a lot, not like on video, but I mean, like
Outside of
in
Chicago,
life.
right?
Exactly. I mean, like, you can't, it's almost like it's a cultural thing. So we were joking one time, and she was like, yeah, well, you're kind of out there and this and that. And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to dial that back. And I go, I don't wear like the jewelry and this and that. And she kind of like looked at me and had this almost like this look like, are you stupid? And I was like, what? She goes, Joe, that's your brand.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is. And that really really stuck with me, and for some reason it just took somebody else saying it that like then I just started leaning into it more. I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, like I've gotten to this point in my life by being my authentic self, and I think that I made a mistake by not doing that up until that point. I think I might have held myself back in certain ways, and now that I'm just kind of leaning into it, I find myself to be more comfortable than ever and continuing to be, I would say, even more successful than I was at that point in time. So, I mean, I'm not sure that I'm trying to think of like other big mistakes, but that's
Yeah.
one that really stands out in my head. That was like one of those moments that you
Right.
remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because I mean, obviously I am from the South, and anybody who hears me open my mouth knows it. And,
Uh-huh.
I kind of embrace it as part of my brand, and it's the hospitality, the Southern hospitality stuff that I teach. But I don't think that being inauthentic in any place that you are is going to help you. I feel like people either want to like you for who you are, and I always laugh and say we have BS detectors, right? Our instinct shows us that if people are being disingenuous, and we pick up on it. And so we never really trust those people as much as when they are their true self. And I talk a little bit about that, being your true self, being authentic with people. Now, obviously you don't want to go into a nursing home with little old ladies and scare the hell out of them because you've got, gauges in your ears and all that stuff. But still, know your audience. This another thing too, is you really have to know your audience. And of course, in vet med, you fit right in because
Exactly.
it's
I'll tell you,
definitely
there's another difference between dental and veterinary. In dental, it was kind of like, oh, this guy's a little out there. And vet, people are like, why isn't your hair blue? It should be purple. I'm like,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we depending on what month it is, we're doing colors, the different colors and stuff based on whatever um event is going on that month. But yes. So you talked a little bit about the network that you have and that keep friends for a long time. And I am absolutely an advocate for building a good network, but a lot of times when you talk to people, and you're in sales too, so this is another thing that scares veterinarians, like selling. Oh my God.
yeah.
Is when you say something about the importance of networking, they're kind of having this impression like it's used car selling and people are pushing stuff on you that you don't want, or they're trying to scam you in some way. And to me, networking is just learning about people and trying to figure out how I can put a couple of people together that will benefit to each other. And that's fun for me. I love matchmaking. That's one of my fun things to do. So tell me a little bit about like your networking. I mean, obviously talk about the Starbucks thing. That's the first leap into knowing that. But what would you tell people about networking?
I think you actually nailed it 100%. It's really the thing that I love the most, which I come to find out years later is what people refer to as networking. Is just learning people's stories. I want to learn your background and where you come from and what makes you tick and what do you like doing in your free time, and like, do we have any similar interests? Or if not, do you have any similar interests with my friend who does have like some of those interests? And like, you put that stuff together. I mean, I think that's a superpower in and of itself,
Yeah.
being able to discern different things and sort of be that great connector. I think that's all networking is. And when it comes to sales, like, man, like there is absolutely a component of sales that is like the quote unquote used car salesman. That's what everybody thinks of when you say like, oh, I'm in sales. Well, okay, stay away
Yeah.
from that guy, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
honestly, if you're a professional salesperson, literally all it is education.
Hmm.
It's finding out what somebody has going on, and if what I can do can help them, and if it can, then it's just educating them. Here's ABC. Here's what we can do. Here's what you're doing now. Here's how this can help you do
Hmm.
something better. I mean, again, I talked a few minutes ago about like becoming passionate about something and be able to convince anybody that that's a thing, because in my opinion, I like knowing the ins and outs of how everything works. Like I'm like a real tech savvy type person. I've always been like a geek, like a total nerd. So I always want to know the technology side of like whatever's happening. And a lot of times people don't know, what that is. So we talk about like Chckup, the online booking. People are like, oh, well, no, 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 you don't understand our schedule. We're different. Ours is crazy. We could never do that. And I'm like, okay, so let's throw out and I'll just throw out random examples. Like you
Hmm.
only want new clients between 9 and 1. You have 3 doctors who handle the same type of appointment for 3 different lengths of time. Like you always leave a same day buffer of 2 hours, for any same day appointments. You keep a certain, you just throw out all these variables and people are like, oh, that actually does sound like what we do. Like, yeah, that sound you can handle. Are you sure you can do that? I'm like, yes, I'm telling you, I'm
Yeah.
doing it for years. It's like, so, when it comes to sales and network, I think they both have sort of a kind of a negative connotation. But I think that if you have good intentions, then literally you can be somebody's the best thing that has happened to them in a long time if you
Yeah.
wind up connecting them to the right person, the right idea, the right platform, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I can remember years and years ago, one of the big pharmaceutical companies asked if I could come and teach their sales territory managers how to teach reception skills. And I said, no, because they have no credibility whatsoever as a receptionist. However, I absolutely could create a PowerPoint for them to teach sales skills and client service because they are experts at both of those things. And that is exactly what a great CSR needs to be, because the CSRs are the ones who are, sometimes just laying the groundwork for the medicine when people are calling up and asking questions on the phone. So they're educating at that point in time. And they're also putting the icing on the cake when the doctor tells the client they need to do something and they come out and they ask the CSR, do I really need to do A, B, and C? And the CSR goes, yes, you absolutely, because here's a story about what happened if you don't. And so I think those are, really valid things that we need to embrace more in veterinary medicine rather than shying away from them.
Hmm.
And rather than thinking of sales as, something that you're pushing on to people that they don't need, it really is educating people about something that they're not even aware they need. Yeah,
100%.
yeah, I like to ask people, like, how many clients do you think would actually come to you and go, "Hey, I've never had a pet before in my life, and I think it needs heartworm preventative." Well, they have no clue that they need that, right? And they have no clue why they need that. Maybe somebody in their friend network has told them they might need that, but they don't really know why. So our job is to teach. And when we look at it as we are teaching people how to be good pet owners, then they do become better pet owners. And because of that, they provide more veterinary care for their pets. And we're not doing disaster medicine either, because they're providing preventative care in a timely manner because they've been educated about why it's important. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on it's client education, no matter what you're doing. So let's talk about Checkup a little bit, because I do want to share the information with the audience, because I feel like this is cool. As a practice consultant, one of my biggest challenges is getting data from my clients and getting reports and having them build reports and having them even know what reports to go find. Because the other thing that drives me crazy is every practice management software calls these things something different. So they're the
Right.
same report, but they have a different name. And so when you're looking at, what does Avamark call your end of month report? What does Cornerstone call your end of month report? It could be anything. So the fact that Checkup allows us to kind of keep a daily pulse of where we are, to me, is a great thing. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of the down and dirty nitty gritty. What does Checkup do for practices?
Sure. So Checkup is basically it's a 5-in-1 platform. It facilitates practice analytics, online booking, two-way communications, reviews management, and a client portal. Now, to your point, every practice management system is a little bit different. So sometimes they have communications built in. They don't have to use ours. Sometimes they have a client portal built in. They don't have to use ours. What pretty much nobody has, though, is the analytics and the online booking. Those two things are absolute game changers. So obviously the online booking we talked about a little bit, but just for a high level overview, it dramatically that is the single thing that will make the biggest impact the most quickly, from a time savings perspective, from a conversion perspective, like for growth, and from a client satisfaction perspective. Like, people really are looking for that in every capacity.
I agree.
People will be like, oh, well, nobody wants online. We want to be able to talk to them. I'm like, all right, when's the last time? And some people, depending on your age and whoever's listening to this, might not remember that, like, back in the day, if you wanted to book a flight, you had to call the airline to talk to somebody on the phone, and it's a
Yes.
45-minute call. And if you wanted a price shop, now you had to make that call 5 different. Nobody does that, right?
No, not at
Nobody does.
all.
As soon as American rolled out online booking, everybody else had to do it, and it's the same thing in every single industry. So that one's pretty obvious. The analytics side is something that's, again, back to the sort of lack of business training in the veterinary space, and it's the same in the dental space. All these people are so intelligent and they're so passionate about what they do. Go to school for 4 years for college, another 4 years for vet school, another 1 to 4 years for like some kind of a specialty. And like, in all that time, most of them aren't trained in how to run a business. So we have our analytics split into two modules within the platform, and both of them are super helpful. One of them is called the Daily Huddle. The other is the practice analytics or custom reporting side. The Daily Huddle gives you really cool things to do on a day-to-day basis. It's designed for everybody to look at for like 2 to 3 minutes in the morning. The office manager, the whole team, and just go, okay, what did we like? How did we perform as a practice, as a business yesterday? What can we do to be successful today? And what can we look ahead and plan for tomorrow to set ourselves up for success? So there's a ton of different things that go into that, but some of them are like, what was our overall production? Did we meet our daily goal, our goal for the day? Are we above, below? Like, where are we at overall? First thing in the morning, you look at a list of all the clients who have not confirmed their appointment. They're on the schedule today, but haven't confirmed their appointment yet, with all their contact info in the contacts. So we can go, hey, Joe, you're bringing in Rocket at 8:30 a.m. today, right? Yes. Okay. Because you didn't confirm your appointment through text. Other things, overdue invoices, people that owe you money, the ability to fire a text to everybody who owes you money in one shot to pick up a bunch of that lost revenue. I mean, there's a million little things that go into that. But it's designed to keep everybody kind of on the same page. So everybody's pulling in the same direction and knows what they can do individually to help reach those daily goals so that you're successful as a business. The other side is then the practice analytics or the custom reporting that you were just mentioning. And that's pretty cool because, again, some systems, some PIM systems have reporting built in. Some of them don't. Some of them that do, they're not super customizable. They're not super user friendly. They're very manual. Other systems that exist for analytics will kind of daisy chain multiple systems together, like they'll layer like Power BI on top of like the PIMS, which then you export to Excel. And it's like, okay, that's not convenient for anybody. So what ours does is basically we're able to query anything in the practice management system and report on that. And you can build out all these custom reports for things like, for instance, revenue by provider or by operatory, like your fill rate, your show rate, your number of appointments, number of unique clients and patients, how many of them were new versus returning, all the different stats that kind of go into the financial health of the practice. And what it allows you to do is honestly just make better decisions for the practice. I had somebody literally either yesterday or the day before I was just on a demo with, and they were that was not something they inquired about originally, but when I showed it to them, their eyes lit up. And the one girl goes, okay, she goes, can we look at production by one doctor versus the other? I go, yeah. And I just showed how it works. She goes, oh my gosh, we've been looking for a way. She goes, our one doctor, the owner, she goes, he's so chatty. He takes forever to get through appointments because he wants to talk to everybody. She goes, the other doctor literally does 3 times the production because he's not like not nice, but like she goes, but he doesn't just sit there and BS with the client, you know? She goes, we've been looking for a way to just show provable data that like, hey, you need to just dial it back a hair here because you're literally being outproduced by a factor of 3 against your associate.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one example. You could look at trending data, you can look at all the stats that make up all those different things, but honestly, it's just one of those things that once you have it, you're like, "Oh my gosh, how did I not know all this information before?" It literally just helps you run a business better. You know what I mean?
One of the things you mentioned that I think we don't have good ways of measurement is retention.
Mm-hmm.
People will ask me, Debbie, how do I get new clients? And there's always attrition in any medical practice because sometimes people die, they move, their pet dies, those kind of things happen. But the core of a great business is to retain the people that you already have, and especially in veterinary medicine, when trust is such a key point of the success of the visit that the longer you keep people with you, the more they trust you because they've had more experiences with you and your staff. Same thing goes for staff retention. Then chances of you having a more successful hospital when people stay with you as a customer, as a client, are greater. But how
Mm-hmm.
do you measure that, right? How do you measure it? So the ability to measure, customer retention, I think is a huge aspect of being able to do this because it's not easy to do in other practice management software systems. It's something you would almost have to have a custom query built to talk about, like, what are your parameters for retention? Well, is it anybody who's been in the last 3 or 4 years? You have to determine what that's going to be for you. And then you kind of look at that and measure it. But it is very clunky sometimes. I actually have called up, and I won't say which software system it was, but it's one of the ones that's been around a while. And I said, here's what I want to be. I want to know. This is what I want to know. And they go, we can't do that. I'm like, why can't you do that? You
Yeah.
should be able to do that. But no, we don't know how to do that. We can't do it. So, yeah, to be able to have a tool that just kind of plug and plays in and is able to query so many different things and to be able to build these unique queries, I think is great. Years and years ago, when I was using Cornerstone, I actually paid for Practice Explorer, which reminds me of what we're talking about. And if I couldn't figure out how to build a query, which the greater than and less than, I am dyslexic, and the greater than and less than symbols drive me crazy. So I would just call them up and go, here's what I want to do, build it, and then let me run it. And that's what they would do. So there was a way to do it. But still, it was a phone call and it was some time, and it was not just, there it is, and let's do that. So I do really like Chckup, and I like what it does for practices. I like the price of it too, because we're going back to the subscribing for this, and this. You can put a lot of different things together that do the same thing, except for the good queries, I think. But the problem is now you're paying
You're
200,
paying 200
400,
for this,
500.
400 for this, 600 for this. Yeah, and all together. I mean, we have a lot of clinics that'll come to us and use us in conjunction with other things that they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, the online booking and the analytics, those are generally things that other people don't have. So they'll kind of tie this in with what they have if
Mm-hmm.
they're really ingrained with it.
Mm-hmm.
Other people will literally come to us and they'll be using 3 different systems and go, hey, can you do automated reminders? Yes. Can you do confirmations? Yes. Can you do mass text, two-way texting? Can you, do you automatic reviews? Do you have a portal? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, then you can do everything that we're paying 3 different systems for. And and like your average clinic that consolidates with us saves like between like $400 and $600 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And there's just one place to go look.
Yeah,
There's the
exactly.
other
It's
thing
all
is
in one dashboard.
all in one place, because we can get like there's stuff all over the place a lot of times to do that. So, okay, let's talk back about, decision making. What advice would you give to somebody that was looking to, make a big life decision? Because you've gone through several transitions, and for you, some of it is just, does it interest me? Is this something I think is interesting? So what would your advice be to people who are kind of think they want to change, maybe want to change, maybe they should change, and they're afraid to change because fear holds people back?
Oh, big time. And by the way, like there's a lot of people who would not enjoy the role that I'm in. I mean, there's it, new businesses are scary. New industries that you're not familiar with are scary. I would say that part of it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, kind of like know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. I think that everybody in life should always like just be open minded in general, because there are things that maybe you don't, maybe you think, okay, yeah, I could probably do that, but I don't know that I would like it. Or maybe there's something I would like doing, but I don't know if I could do it. And I think more often than not, people are really surprised by that, myself included in that. Again, like it was scary being in one industry for like almost 15 years and jumping into a brand new one where I don't know anybody. But so far, it's been great. I mean, there's always different resources and things available that if it exists in one place, it probably exists in another. So having, like, for instance, vet partners, you mentioned in the beginning of the call, being able
Mhm.
to meet everybody in the vet partners group has been fantastic. Like everybody's so helpful and knows somebody that knows the thing that we're trying to find out. The other thing that I would say, if I had one single piece of advice for anybody really with anything, whether it's like a life decision, career decision, people talk about like, what's your favorite, like your business books and things, right? What's your favorite podcast to listen to? I think one really underrated thing that I would strongly recommend to everybody is to have at least one, if not several, mentors. I think that I think that if you can find a person or people that have more of a high level overview, they're looking at things that you're doing from kind of an outside perspective, because people get down in the weeds about whatever they're doing,
Mhm.
right? You just get so focused on what it is that you're doing day to day that sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to look in and go, hey, have you thought about that? And it's like, oh my, yeah, I haven't thought about it. Like that makes so
Yeah.
much sense. So I've been really, really lucky, some would say blessed in life, to have a series of back-to-back really excellent mentors, starting with one that was my manager at Starbucks. After that, the startup that I had met somebody from the drive-through and then gotten hired to help him out doing stuff. The guy that had the heart attack, that guy was a really good mentor for a while. My manager at that company was excellent, and then I've been working with the same guy for about the last 6 companies, about the last 15 years, all my time in dental and continuing to now, who's a business partner in Chckup. And then even some of the people that I've worked with just have different perspectives on things, and they see things from a different point of view. So when you can establish kind of a network, back to networking again, of people who really understand you as a person. I mean, I think there's a strong I don't know, benefit in knowing yourself, but there's also an equally strong benefit in other people knowing you really well, because you
Mhm.
might have a certain goal or a certain kind of a mindset, and somebody else goes, hey, but you're also really good at this, or hey, you remember when you try and you just couldn't stand XYZ. I mean, like whatever it is. But I think it's so important to have that outside perspective that finding at least one mentor, if not several, is
Mhm.
probably probably would be my biggest point of advice to
Yeah.
anybody, like, kind of thinking about any life decision.
Yeah. Well, I think your point is spot on. Recently in veterinary medicine, I think there's been a big realization that mentoring, especially young veterinarians, is important in order to keep them in the profession, because that first year out is usually very intimidating when you're
Yeah.
out there on your own. And there is kind of a misconception about what mentorship is, because I feel like a lot of times people think, oh, it's really a lot of hand holding, or maybe I just kind of look over their shoulder and tell them what they're doing wrong. But a good mentor is like a coach, and they kind of
Yes.
look at you and go, okay, this is maybe how your performance could be better. This is how you could fine tune the things that you're interested in doing, or this is how maybe you should just focus yourself. And I have certainly had mentors myself, which I am forever grateful for. As you're starting out as a consultant, it's a lonely job. There are usually just you. So fortunately for me, I did have a mentor who was a veterinarian who had been involved in associations, and he got me my first big speaking gig at AHA, and unfortunately, I can say that I have spoken there many times since then. But sometimes it just takes that one person to help you, first of all, get the confidence to think, yeah, you can go out. Also, to coach you to appropriately charging for what you're supposed to be doing. That was
Yeah.
huge for me. Is like, I have no idea. I've just been managing hospitals, and he would go, raise your fees, raise your fees. Yes, sir. Um, so having somebody that you can talk to about things, and even a peer group too. That's the other thing too, is they don't have to be the formal mentor, but a peer group that you can run things by. And I feel like,
Mhm.
especially in multi-doctor veterinary hospitals, when there's a good collaboration between the associates, that it is such a safety net for the doctors to say, okay, there's 5 of us and we can talk about this and come to a good conclusion. And if you're a 1 or 2 doctor practice and you're working alone, a lot of times the safety net is gone and it's just you. So that's when you really need the peer group or the mentor out somewhere that you can reach up and give a call or send a text to and say, I'm really struggling with A, B, and C. What are your thoughts on this? So yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing is listen to what they have to say. Doesn't mean you're going to change everything about you or what you're doing, but like you were talking about, you're kind of changing your persona to conform more than
Right.
wasn't really true. It wasn't really you. And I feel like that's, something for me. I, as a speaker, I always like to dress, and I like clothes. In fact, one of the rods fell in my closet the other day because I had too many clothes on them. And my husband said, okay, this is enough. But a lot of people will get up and speak and they'll be in casual clothes, and that's fine. That's them, but that's not me, because my persona is I like to dress up.
Right.
So, I just stick with that, even though it's probably not kind of the fashionable thing to do at this moment, but it's what makes me comfortable as a speaker to feel like I am presenting myself to the best of my abilities and standing up from that. So
Hmm.
yeah. So Joe, this is really great information, and I thank you very much for your time. I want to get you to share your screen, because if anybody has a question about Chckup, you've got a little slide here that they could just take a quick little screenshot of this. And I love the little QR code that's a paw print. I need to get one of those for my own business. It's like a paw print QR code.
Yeah, I had to. I figured if I had the opportunity, so appreciate you letting me share that. But yeah, I told the guys, I go throw something together, just kind of list what we do and put a thing on there so somebody can schedule to have a demo with us. If anybody wants to see a demo of Chckup, it only takes 8 minutes to get through a demo. So it'll show you basically how it ties in with the analytics, the online scheduling, the whole thing. 8 minutes long, and it's only, like I said, it's only $2.99 a month. So generally speaking, people are coming to us and consolidating and saving money. the online scheduling alone has an average ROI of about 44-1. That's a very finite thing that we can track. The practice analytics, it helps so many things in the practice, but a little more nebulous, a little harder to track exactly the ROI on it. How much time is saved by doing these things? How much extra revenue did you pick up? What's the, the increase in conversion and retention and all that stuff? So yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to talk to anybody on here. I'll also throw out there, I don't know when this podcast is going to air or go live, but anybody that reaches out, whenever this happens, whenever it goes live,
Yes.
anybody that month, whether it's July, August, that reaches out, will give you 75% off of the setup fee. So big discount for anybody that gets in touch within that first time frame before you forget who we are.
There you go. There you go. Joe, I wanted to run something by you because I thought this was such an interesting observation. I was having a conversation yesterday with a veterinarian about the new association that I'm helping build, and that's NAVR. Yep. And she said, well, with all this technology, do you think the CSR position is going to just go away? And I went, no, I think that the CSR position is going to change into more of a concierge customer service position, and that all this little nitpicky monkey work that really can be done by technology will be done by technology. And so when it all comes down to it, your CSRs are the relationship builders a lot of times in your practice. And at some point, somebody's always going to need a hug, and AI tech can never do that for us. So this will just free up our time in order to be able to give more hugs. I think it's the whole.
Exactly. It's funny. I mean, I've heard once in a great while, I'll hear somebody go, oh, well, like, is that going to replace the job? And I'm like, all right, like if you've ever worked in a vet practice on the front desk side or really, really at all, how many things do you have to do in a day? Like this is going to automate some of the, use your term, monkey work. Yes, 100%. But that just gives you more time to be present and actually help the people that are in person. Like we got all these stats for online booking, like how 38% of all appointments are booked after hours or on weekends, right? Average amount of time it takes to book an appointment over the phone is 8.1 minutes. I mean, that happens in 30 seconds, right? You've got the amount of people that call in that get put on hold. If I'm not mistaken, it's 56% get put on hold at least once. And I'm on the phone with people all day long. I mean, like you just wind up giving a better experience. You're able to do more of the things that you really want to be doing instead of this goofy little monkey work,
Yep, absolutely. All right, Joe. Well, thank you very much. I would like to know, have you got a favorite book? We quoted a couple of them that when you're talking about big rocks and big, hairy, audacious goals, we've got a little Peter Drucker mixed in with a couple of Ken Blanchard quotes in there too. So do you have a favorite book or anything that you would suggest that people read or listen to?
The one that I always recommend, it's fairly common, so it might not, people have probably heard of this, but it's a short read and it's just so impactful to me, is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yeah.
And it's all about when you have different roles in any organization, no matter what type of a team it is, that all the roles really need to understand what all the other roles are doing in order to make everybody be pulling in the same direction. And it's something that's lacking in so many organizations. And it's not really anybody's fault. People just aren't aware. They don't know what they don't know. So it's a short read. I think it's super impactful. It's the one that I recommend whenever people ask, like, what's your favorite business book? That's the one I go to.
That's the one. I like it. It's on my shelf behind me. You can't see the book state, but it's back there. And I think it is absolutely impactful. And of course, leads right into the work that I do with communication, is cross-team communication, because they tend to silo themselves. And everybody thinks that they're the ones who are doing all the work. And
exactly.
everybody, in every practice, there's an ebb and flow of work. And at some point, somebody's going to get a chance to breathe and somebody else is going to be slammed, and then it's going to reverse and come back the other way. But cross-training solves a lot of that, and good communication solves the rest. So
yeah, that's a great quote in and of itself. I like that.
You like that? You like that? Yeah. All right, Joe. Well, thank you very much for your time today. And thanks to the audience for spending some time with us and listening to The Bend. I always appreciate my audience and the time that they spend listening to my guest. And I hope that you learned some stuff today and will find a tool that makes your life easier, because that's the whole goal. We're bending the profession for the better.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.